I don't think this should be much of a shocker for many of you Bulls fans. When you trade a lot of assets for a specific player, it would be a bad idea just to let them walk for nothing, because in the Bulls case, if for them, they traded multiple assets for Nikola Vucevic, and if you just let Vuce walk, that's basically trading 2 first-round picks for literally nothing. So bringing it back is kind of the only option, unless it's going to be via sign and trade. But the Chicago Bulls have brought back Nikola Vucevic. This is official on a 3-year contract, $60 million. This is a contract extension. The Chicago Bulls did not let Nikola Vucevic hit free agency. They got the contract done before he hit free agency. They had until June 30th to get a contract extension done, and they did that. So as you can see here, Shams Charania had this first, and then Casey Johnson also confirmed it with Vucevic's agent, and the Bulls just made it official pretty much immediately. Like, once this news just kind of got out, Bulls were like, okay, we're making it official, and they've decided to tweet this out. So not much to really think about when it comes to this deal. There's not much, in question, but the biggest thing right now that I think we're all kind of questioning is what exactly is this deal? Are there any sort of unlikely incentives? And also, is the 3rd year of this contract non-guaranteed? That is the biggest thing, in my opinion, to look at. But before we get into the numbers of this, let's talk about what the Bulls have to do now with Vucevic now done, right? I think this was kind of priority number 1 on the Bulls off-season list, was to get Nikola Vucevic extended. I have my thoughts on that. Don't worry, I'll get into this just a little bit here. But let's talk about what the Bulls have to do now. So Anil Gagna, he kind of broke this down. We're kind of waiting to see what Drummond does with his player option. We're still just kind of waiting on this. I believe Drummond has until the 30th. I'm not 100% sure though. But this decision from Drummond needs to come soon. He might have been waiting for the Vucevic deal to be done, so we have to kind of wait around for it. But Drummond picks up it. Well, we're just going to assume he picks up his player option. What has been done already is that Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu are restricted free agents. They were both given the qualifying offer earlier today. So nothing to really talk about when it comes to those two guys, okay? Both Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu are officially restricted free agents because they both got the qualifying offer. Other things to potentially do, though, that does not affect the cap this season is Patrick Williams' rookie extension and DeRozan Cruz are also extension eligible. I'm not going to talk about these last two things, but these two players are next on the list for the Bulls. These are obviously returning or incumbent players for this Bulls team, and I'll break this down in a later video, but these are the next two things for the Bulls. But with this Vucevic deal now done, the Bulls are now projected, at least for now, to be $26 million below the tax, okay? Now, that sounds like a lot, right? But we have to keep in mind that Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu have not signed, right? Or re-signed, I should say. So, Will Gottlieb has been saying that he thinks Kobe White is going to get about $14 million a year, okay? That, in my opinion, makes a lot of sense because it is higher than the projected $12.4 million mid-level exception, right? If you're Kobe White and you're most likely going to be starting at the point guard for the Bulls next season, he probably is going to be wanting more than the mid-level exception because then he can go somewhere else and get the mid-level exception from any other team, honestly. But if you're the Bulls and you actually want to keep him around, right, you need to give him probably a little bit more than that. So we're just projecting him to get $14 million. We're also projecting Ayo just to accept the qualifying offer. I'm not 100% sure about this yet, but it kind of does make sense. I'll talk about this at a later time, but if Ayo accepts a qualifying offer, it is $5.2 million, so then there's that. Obviously, we're waiting on the Drummond player option. Julian Phillips, who the Bulls traded for on draft night. I haven't talked about this just yet because it's not really official, but with the new CBA coming in, second round picks do have like an exception now to be able to sign to a contract. We're just going to be guessing it's $1 million. But if you take into the fact of, the $20 million from Vooch and then everything else for the Bulls when it comes to their incumbent players, right? The Bulls only have $90 million in tax space. And the mid-level exception is $12.4 million and the biannual exception is about $4 million. So if the Bulls are going to use both those exceptions fully, they're going to be heading into the tax, which I think the Bulls need to do if they're going to be doubling down on this core. But if they're not, then I don't know what they're thinking because they need to spend the entire mid-level exception and also the biannual exception, in my opinion. But how do you do that while staying under the tax? Well, you got to trade someone important, right? Which obviously falls under these players up here. So I don't know what the Bulls are really thinking. I would like to get Lonzo's money off the books, but that's not really a possibility, it looks like, because his front office is ridiculous. So there's that. So with the Vucevic deal, just think about only like about $9 million left in terms of space between now between where the Bulls are going to be and the luxury tax, okay? Not a lot of money to work with. Let's look at Spot Track here. Spot Track has kind of already updated it. Again, we don't know the exact deals. Is this contract backloaded? Is it front loaded for Vucevic? Also, we do not know if he has a player option, if it's not guaranteed for the 3rd year. We're not entirely sure. But $20 million for Nikola Vucevic is going to be right here. If you look at, in terms of the cap percentage, this isn't really too bad. It's about 15% of the cap. Now, I know a lot of people are already kind of talking about, like, this is overpay. The Bulls are already, they're outbidding themselves, which, like, I kind of agree with you on that. I don't really necessarily know who the Bulls are going to be up against, and I kind of would have liked the Bulls just to kind of let this go through for agency with Vooch and not just kind of re-sign him preemptively in case you needed that money for something else. But when I say money, it's not cap space. It just means room between the luxury tax. But when it comes to Vooch, $20 million isn't bad for what he produces. Yes, he is a walking double-double. I hate that term, though, because I do think that Vooch isn't necessarily the best double-double machine in terms of, like, impactfulness. But 14 or 15% in the salary cap, that was about $18 million last season, okay? So remember, the salary cap continues to go up every single season. I don't want people to start thinking, oh my god, well, $20 million is ridiculous, when the salary cap literally increased by about $13 million this past offseason, or whatever the number was. Maybe it was like 10. It just increased a significant amount, okay? So $20 million is basically $18 million from last season, when the salary cap was $123 million, okay? The salary cap obviously had a jump. What we're looking at here in terms of the salary cap. The salary cap went up to $136 million projected, so $13 million increase. It's not too bad for Nikola Vucevic and what he produces. But yet again, we're still here talking about, it's not necessarily the money when it comes to Vooch. Like, I do think that Vooch deserves this sort of contract for what he does, but it's where the heck is this team going? And I think that's the biggest issue with this team, is that you just bring back this guy, and I'm praying to the gods that the last year of this deal is a team option, or it's just like fully non-guaranteed, just so that we don't have to really worry about this too much. But I don't really know where this team is going. You bring back this guy. Are you trading Zach? Are you trading DeRozan? It doesn't really make sense to do that now because you brought back Vooch, right? So we can talk about this at a later time, but this is where we're at. Now, in terms of where Vooch is, it's in terms of production and how much money he should be making, this puts him now tied with 10th in terms of the center salaries. As you can see, these are all the centers getting paid more than him. So he's tied at number 10 with Jarrett Allen. If you ask me, okay, and this is where I'm going to really get into what I think about Vooch, I don't really think Nikola Vucevic is a top 10 center in the NBA. And I think, if you're questioning that, I recommend you to go look at like a list of centers. Like, this is obviously a list of centers, but it's based off salary, okay? And you can make some like arguments with some guys, because for example, like Nick Claxton is only making $8 million, and he is not the 27th best center in the NBA. He is like a defensive player of the year type candidate, and that is obviously not down here. So I would just recommend you to go look at a list of centers and then put Vooch where you think he should be, right? And just be honest with yourself, because I don't think Vooch is top 10. I would argue he's number 12. That's just me personally, though. And just keep that in mind when in terms of like how excited you should be about him coming back. I see a lot of Bulls fans already saying like, wow, look at all these numbers, 17 points per game, 11 rebounds. He absolutely should be coming back. And a lot of people are like, oh my god, yay, that's such a great contract. When I'm like, why didn't you do that with Zach then? Because Zach LaVine obviously deserved that contract, but we're happy about Nikola Vucevic more than we're happy about Zach, which makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. I'm talking just about a specific group of people, but at the end of the day, this is what I'm looking at, okay? Now, when it comes to Nikola Vucevic, everybody keeps talking about Vucevic as an elite post-up player. This is something that Stacey King has been like honing into Bulls fans every single broadcast. Is that you got to feed Vooch in the post, and I have been one of those people that has said that I don't think Vucevic should be in the post at all. I truly do not think he should be, and we're gonna go through that right now. One of the reasons why I've been saying the Bulls should not be posting on Vucevic is because the post is just a dead game, okay? In my opinion, there should only be two people in the NBA that should be posting up consistently, and those two players are future first ballot Hall of Famers, and that's Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid, okay? These two guys are the only two people, in my opinion, that should be posting up consistently and getting consistent post-up touches. But even if you just look at these two guys, look, like Nikola Jokic, he averages about 5 possessions in the post per game. Embiid, about 5, right? The post-up is just a dead game. Okay, we don't really see this, like, the post up being used. We're actually seeing it a little bit more because of these two guys, but outside of those two guys, you don't really see it that often. And in my opinion, the Bulls are actually posting up Vooch too much. If you're worrying about possessions per game, people say that the Bulls do not post up Vooch enough. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's just not the case. He is 9th in terms of possessions per game in the post. That to me is plenty. Like, everyone keeps saying that they barely post him up. Well, that's just false. Like, he's 9th in the NBA in terms of post-ups per game. That is just completely false. And if you look at his points per possession, like, this is, like, all right. This is a career high for Nikola Vucevic, okay? 1.05 points per possession in the post. That's a career high, but that's only for the 69th percentile in the NBA. So in my opinion, it's not really that good of an idea or a good of a play to be running, especially when there's better options. For example, the DeMar DeRozan isolation, that averages 1.33 points per possession. I would much rather DeRozan isolate than Nikola Vucevic post up. And I know Bulls fans think the Bulls isolated a ton this past season. They really didn't. The DeRozan and LaVine, their isolation frequency is much lower compared to a lot of other stars, and the Bulls were not very high in terms of isolation percentage compared to other teams. In fact, DeRozan isolated less times per game than Nikola Vucevic posted up per game. Okay, this is according to NBA.com. Take it as you wish, but that's just my thoughts on it. All right, and this is the stats that I'm getting it from. So if you want to double check me on this, go ahead. It's right here on NBA.com. But as I said, this is a career high for Nikola Vucevic, which to me it just doesn't make much sense. I'll also name a couple other things that average a higher points per possession. Zach LaVine in transition. Zach LaVine spot up shooting. Kobe White spot up shooting. DeMar DeRozan in the pick and roll. Nikola Vucevic in the pick and roll. Yeah, and that's basically the 5 things, right? I'm not even gonna get into cutting, which all players average higher points per possession in terms of cutting, but that just shows you that, in my opinion, there are 5 other ideas for the Bulls to do instead of post up Nikola Vucevic, okay? That's the reason why I'm saying we should not be posting him up, because it's not good for this Bulls offense. The Bulls offense ranked 24th in the NBA last season, okay? I think a lot of Bulls fans are kind of shocked to hear that, but it's just true. And I think one of the reasons why is because the Bulls were playing 90s type basketball, and posting up is basically the 90s, right? There's no reason to post up in today's NBA. There just straight up isn't. So for Vucevic, moving forward with him, I need to see less post ups, and I'm going to get into what he needs to shoot more of, which we'll get into in just a second here, okay? But just to show you that everyone keeps saying that Vucevic is an elite post-up player, I'm just going to show you right now that I don't think he was ever once an elite post-up player, okay? Like I said, this is a career high, okay, in terms of points per possession, all right? Let's go through all of his years, okay? Last season, 0.87, 37th percentile, okay? 2020-21, okay? This is when the Bulls traded for him. In Orlando, he averaged 0.9 points per possession, that's 39th percentile. And then when he got to the Bulls, 1.01 points per possession. That was the 65th percentile. Okay. 2019. Okay. 0.82. 30th or 31st percentile. Okay. And this is like all-star years of Vooch, mind you. Like, this is like all-star years. 0.93. 51st or 50th percentile. And then this year, which is the last year I'm going to go to, 0.74 points per possession. Again, not very good. That's I think his lowest. All right. And then I don't think this, or actually, yeah, this does count. 0.8. All right, this is the 27th percentile, and I don't know if he got enough. He did. 0.93. Okay, this is the highest percentile he was at, but obviously the points per possession was a little bit lower. Okay, but in the end, I don't see him dominating this category, right? And everyone keeps saying that he is an elite post-up player. I'm here to tell you that that is just false. Okay. Nikola Vucevic is a post-up player. It just isn't something that he's elite at. But I do think he's elite at some things. Okay. I tweeted this out. Nikola Vucevic at shots in the rim. He shot 271 shots at the rim. He shot 71% at the rim. He also shot 243 shots between 10 feet and the 3-point line, and he shot 46.5% from there. Okay. My whole point of this tweet is that basically Vucevic took the same amount of mid-range shots as he did his layups. Okay. This shows you right here that the shot selection from Vooch, and it's partially on Billy Donovan, right, and the roster construction, but this shows you that this is flawed, okay? These two numbers should be nowhere close to each other. This number should be significantly higher than this number. And this is from Basketball Reference, okay? You can see here, at the rim, Nikola Vucevic is a fantastic player. He shot 70% at the rim. Why doesn't he shoot more from there? I honestly don't know. Okay, but the Bulls and he need to do better at getting to the rim for him, or getting shots at the rim. And I need to see less of that pick and fade from Vucevic and more of the pick and roll from Vucevic. Okay, he needs to roll hard to the rim, but he seems just more like seems content at just shooting jumpers right now. And I understand he's not the most athletic player, but he needs to just get to the rim more because he's a very strong finisher at the rim. As you can see, between 3 and 10 feet, he shoots 60%. Why would you shoot shots from this range, right, where you shoot 46%, where you shoot 70% at the rim? Obviously, you can't eliminate mid-range shots. Like, mid-range shots, they're just going to happen. I'm not saying eliminate it. I'm just saying reduce this number, okay? And he shot 34% from three-point land last season. Like, you need to reduce these shots from here and add more shots here and add more shots here, okay? This is how the Bulls are going to get out of that terrible ranked offense, which was, again, ranked 24th in the NBA last season. These mid-range shots need to get reduced. Vucevic is one of the players that falls into too many mid-range shots. This applies to Zach, this applies to Kobe White, this applies to Patrick Williams, it applies to a lot of players on the Bulls, and obviously DeMar DeRozan's the king of the mid-range. But if DeRozan's going to be shooting all these mid-range shots, then the other players need to shoot less mid-range shots, because it's the only way this Bulls offense is going to even itself out and not be ranked dead last in three-pointers made per game and 24th ranked offensively, okay? So for Vooch, I want to see just more efficient shot selection, and with that, I think he can average, over 18 points per game again, and be at a much higher efficiency. He shot 52% from the field last season. That's kind of low for a center, but I think this number could go up to like close to 55% if he just shot more efficient shots at the rim, obviously, and then shooting from 3-point range. It is what it is, right? So in the end, this is where I am looking at with Vooch, that his value with the contract isn't necessarily too bad. I just don't know where this Bulls team is going, and if the Bulls are going to be, doubling down on this core, which it looks like that they are, they have to do a really good job of making sure Vooch is maximized when he plays, and make sure that he is played at an effective rate and not shooting mid-range shots, not shooting not getting post-up possessions, because we all know with Vooch that he doesn't necessarily get to the rim in a post-up. He tends to shoot from 12 feet out, right? That's what he tends to do in a post-up, and it just isn't something that is effective in today's NBA when there's many other possessions or other types of possessions that the Bulls could be running that would be much better for this Bulls team, and they average more points per possession, okay? So I really hope that the Bulls get away from this post-up stuff with Vooch, but it is Billy Donovan at the end of the day, and he likes to give players what they like to do. And Nikola Vucevic likes to post up, and we're still talking about this, and because he is officially re-signed with this Bulls team. Not sure what the Bulls are going to do after this. I'm kind of interested to see what they do in free agency. I know there's a lot to kind of talk about. Again, the Bulls do not have a lot of room between where they're going to be currently standing and the luxury tax with all their salaries, but I'm interested to see if the front office is actually be willing to go into the luxury tax, even though we've seen that the Reinsdorfs have never, ever gone into the luxury tax, and I don't ever think that they're going to unless I see it myself. But Nikola Vucevic is officially back with the Bulls on a 3-year, $60 million contract extension. I am praying that third year is non-guaranteed, because that makes his contract a little bit more enticing if they're going to ever trade him later down the road. But we'll see. But that's it for me, Bulls fans. If you could, hit the like button on this video. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.